When an avoidant begins to experience real love, it rarely feels calm or beautiful at first. It feels overwhelming, confusing, like their emotions are fighting against years of emotional self-protection. Most people think avoidants are afraid of love itself, but that's not the truth. What they truly fear is what love uncovers inside them. Real love acts like a mirror, and for someone who built their identity around emotional distance, control, and independence, that mirror can feel terrifying. When someone reaches beyond their walls and touches the parts of them they've hidden for years, everything inside them gets shaken. Their first instinct is usually to pull away, not because you failed them, but because being loved sincerely exposes the pain, insecurity, and unhealed wounds they worked so hard to bury. To an avoidant, unconditional love can feel unsafe. Their nervous system often connects closeness with danger, not comfort. So when someone shows them consistency, affection, patience, and emotional safety, it can feel almost unreal, too peaceful to trust, too good to believe. That's why they sometimes distance themselves from the very person who made them feel deeply alive again. Inside them, there's a constant battle happening. One side craves intimacy and connection. The other side wants safety through emotional distance. One day they may seem fully present, affectionate, and emotionally open. The next day they become quiet, cold, or detached. It's not always manipulation. Most of the time, it's fear colliding with feelings they don't know how to manage. Avoidants often carry emotional memories of rejection, disappointment, or feeling unseen. So when real love enters their life, those old fears get triggered. They retreat because vulnerability feels unfamiliar. Distance gives them the illusion of control again. But here's what most people misunderstand. That panic, that withdrawal, that emotional confusion often means the feelings are real. If they truly didn't care, they would remain emotionally flat and unaffected. Indifference is calm. Genuine love creates chaos inside someone who has spent their life suppressing emotions. That's why you shouldn't automatically see their fear as rejection. Sometimes it's evidence that something inside them is finally waking up. Real love starts breaking down the emotional armor they've relied on for years. And when those walls begin to crack, it feels exposing, not freeing. You'll notice strange contradictions. They think about you even when they try not to. They reread conversations they never answered. They hear your voice in quiet moments. Love slowly slips through the cracks in their defenses, even while they fight it internally. Because authentic connection doesn't only touch the mind, it reaches the soul. So if you've experienced that push and pull dynamic, understand what may truly be happening underneath it. You became a mirror that forced them to face emotions they spent years avoiding. They're not only reacting to you, they're confronting themselves. And real love with an avoidant usually begins with conflict, not comfort. But conflict can also mean transformation. It means something genuine is breaking through the walls they built for survival. Sometimes love begins with discomfort because old emotional defenses are collapsing for the first time. As their feelings deepen, something else changes too. Their avoidance slowly shifts. In the beginning, they distance themselves to escape emotional closeness. But once they truly fall for someone, the withdrawal becomes less about escaping love and more about trying to protect themselves from how powerful that love feels. For an avoidant, deep love can feel almost unbearable. They start overthinking everything, replaying conversations, questioning whether they're enough, wondering if they'll lose themselves or eventually get hurt. The more they care, the more vulnerable they feel. Their silence isn't emptiness. Often, it's emotional overload. They withdraw because they feel too much, not too little. After a deeply emotional moment, they may disappear or become distant, and it's easy to assume the connection meant nothing. But sometimes the opposite is true. It meant everything. They try to preserve the connection in the only way they understand, through space and control. They believe distance protects both them and the relationship, but over time, they slowly begin learning that real love cannot survive through emotional hiding. It survives through honesty, openness, and trust. Eventually, many avoidants realize that no amount of distance can erase a genuine bond. Love keeps pulling them back toward vulnerability. Slowly, they begin understanding that true safety isn't found in isolation. It's found in emotional connection. And then something subtle starts happening. They begin mirroring the person they love. Not consciously, but naturally. They absorb your energy, your emotional patterns, your way of communicating. For someone emotionally guarded, mirroring becomes a hidden form of intimacy. They may start using your phrases, matching your emotional tone, or reacting to situations in ways that reflect you. It's not manipulation, it's emotional resonance. Their nervous system is quietly learning what emotional safety feels like through your presence. Avoidants don't emotionally mirror everyone. Most of their lives are spent protecting their inner world from emotional influence. So when they begin reflecting your energy, it usually means you reached a depth inside them that very few people ever touch. Over time, the mirroring goes deeper than behavior. They begin reflecting emotional courage too. They slowly open up more. They start showing empathy instead of immediately shutting down. They initiate contact, share pieces of themselves. Little by little, love teaches them a new emotional language they were never taught before. That's why authentic love can completely change an avoidant person, not through pressure or chasing, but through patience, safety, and emotional consistency. Real love becomes the thing that teaches them vulnerability is not weakness. It teaches them that connection is not the enemy. And when an avoidant finally realizes that safety was never in the distance, but in the connection itself, everything inside them begins to change. That's not coincidence. That's connection. It's love expressing itself through actions when words still feel too risky. When an avoidant starts mirroring you, it isn't about control or manipulation. It's about something deeper, surrender, a quiet sign that their emotional defenses are starting to loosen. Their body begins to feel safer, and their heart, even if it stays silent, starts to resonate with yours. When you are calm, they unknowingly begin to match that calm. You are no longer just someone in their life, you become someone they trust. And for an avoidant, trust is the strongest form of love they can show without ever saying, "I love you." When real love enters their life, something inside them shifts from curiosity into emotional crisis. What once felt like control starts to feel like instability. At that point, their fear isn't just about losing a person, it's about losing the one experience that made them feel truly alive. Their entire survival system has been built on emotional distance. They tell themselves they don't need anyone, that being alone equals strength, that feelings only create problems. But authentic love breaks that belief. It reaches the part of them that wants connection more than control. And that's where panic begins. Because now it's not just about losing someone. It feels like losing the only mirror that showed them they are human, not unreachable. You didn't just get close to them, you revealed them. And when someone sees through their emotional armor, that armor stops feeling strong. That's why even in silence, they can't fully let go of you. You replay in their mind. Conversations repeat internally. Moments feel unfinished. They aren't just remembering you. They are trying to process something that doesn't fit their emotional survival system. You became the contradiction they can't solve. You were the one person who got close without running away when things became real. And that breaks their old belief that closeness always leads to pain. This realization is deeply unsettling because it exposes something they've avoided for years. Their emotional distance was never true strength. It was protection. So when they experience real connection, that protection starts to feel like pressure. They may look calm on the outside, but internally they are overwhelmed. Not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much and don't know how to hold it. This is why avoidants often fall into emotional confusion after deep connection. They don't leave because they don't care. They leave because caring feels too intense to regulate. They withdraw to protect what they feel, not to erase it. And over time, something changes. The silence that once felt safe starts feeling empty. The distance that once felt like control starts feeling like loss. They begin to feel the absence of connection more than the comfort of isolation. This is the turning point, when they realize that no amount of control can replace the peace they felt when they allowed themselves to connect. That's when love starts becoming something deeper than fear, because love forces growth. It breaks old emotional programming that says safety only exists in distance. And when they finally feel what real connection is, solitude no longer feels powerful. It starts feeling incomplete. They may not chase you openly. They may not express everything in words. But internally, something shifts. The idea of losing you doesn't just feel like losing a person anymore. It feels like losing emotional clarity, safety, and a version of themselves they didn't know existed. And this is where everything begins to change slowly. Love starts becoming something they no longer run from in the same way. Not because fear disappears, but because connection starts to feel more real than fear itself. Eventually, they begin to show love in their own way. Not through big emotional declarations, but through behavior, small actions, quiet consistency, checking in, remembering details, helping without being asked. To most people, it looks simple. But for an avoidant, these are huge emotional steps, because every small action is a way of saying, "I care," without fully exposing themselves. Their way of loving is practical, subtle, and often misunderstood. They don't express love loudly, they express it safely, through actions that allow closeness without full emotional exposure. And as trust builds, those actions slowly become less calculated and more natural. What once felt like effort starts becoming genuine expression. Love shifts from fear-based behavior to emotional presence. That's when transformation begins. They start moving from protection to participation, from avoidance to engagement, from fear-based distance to cautious closeness. So when you see an avoidant showing love in quiet ways, don't underestimate it. You are not witnessing indifference. You are witnessing emotional evolution. Because for someone who has spent their entire life protecting themselves from closeness, even the smallest act of emotional openness is an act of courage. And over time, something even more powerful happens. They begin to realize that love doesn't destroy them. It reveals them. And what they once ran from slowly becomes the very thing that teaches them how to stay. That is the real shift. Not perfection, not instant change, but the beginning of learning that connection doesn't have to mean loss of self. And when an avoidant finally understands that staying doesn't equal losing control, but actually creates emotional safety, that is when real transformation begins. In the end, what looks like distance in an avoidant is often not a lack of love, but a struggle to handle it. Their silence, their pullback, and their emotional confusion are usually signs that something real has been awakened inside them, not that nothing is there. When authentic love enters their life, it challenges their old belief that closeness is unsafe, and that creates fear before it creates comfort. But over time, love starts to change how they see connection. What once felt overwhelming slowly becomes familiar. What once triggered escape slowly starts building trust. They begin to express care in quiet, subtle ways, and even if it doesn't look intense or obvious, it is meaningful for someone learning how to feel again. True connection with an avoidant is not about forcing openness, but about understanding their pace and reading their language of care. And in that space, love doesn't disappear in distance. It quietly grows through it.